Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I see that it is 5:30 and I've just received confirmation that we are up and streaming. Therefore, you can go ahead and start your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, councillors, members of SLT, and members of the viewing public. I see that we indeed do have quorum. So I call this regular council meeting January 30th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. As we do with all council meetings, we start off with the land acknowledgement led by Councillor Eckert.
Thank you. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging—
Lion, you must be muted. Either that or you're frozen.
I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can.
Okay.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to let everyone know, Ms. Leach is getting Mike G to help the mayor with his technical difficulties.
Sorry, Holly, I think the mayor was having difficulty with his and thought that I was frozen. So I will start again.
Thank you.
We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Eckhart. I would just go to Deputy Mayor Wink. I do understand that Mike G is helping the mayor. Did you wish to continue on with the agenda, or shall we give the mayor a moment or two?
I would suggest that we give the mayor a moment or two.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
No, here, you sit here. So, Madam Clerk, while we're fixing the mayor's technical challenges, the mayor is more important than the CAO on every level, and he can participate through the meeting while we get that fixed, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Cribbs. To you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Eckhart just finished reading the land acknowledgement. If I may, we can move on to the adoption of the agenda.
Yes, of course, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kerr, that the agenda be amended to add the closed session addendum being item 2.1.7. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, any discussion from any council members on the amendment? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the January 30th, 2023 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion as amended, council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda,
Is there any counselor that has a general interest, to disclose any pecuniary interest thereof? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've so noted. Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to item 4 on the agenda, and we do have a registered delegate with us tonight from the MCA of Niagara. I will just ask that Ms. Leach bring our delegate into the meeting. If the council can just give us a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do see that we have our delegates in. I would just remind the registered delegates that 10 minutes are provided. I will have a countdown going and I will let you know when you get to 8 minutes and then again when you get to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think obviously leading out with thanking you, Mayor, councillors, and then the staff that have allowed us to be here today. I am Christian Wolf. I'm the CEO for the YMCA of Niagara. With myself, I have Ben McDermott, who is our General Manager of Health and Wellness, and also Kelly Jones, who is a manager of one of our employment services sites. So what I want to basically go through today is just looking at our Niagara Centre, or the Niagara Welland branch, and talk a little bit about how we can bolster our community impact and support, and with support from the Pelham Council, or the Pelham Municipality. Slide, please. So what we're going to work through today is just the setting a little bit of context around what services we deliver there, Niagara Centre as a whole, our impact in the community, and then we'll talk a little bit around our membership mix and what it currently looks like, and it currently stands in the post-pandemic world. And then we'll take a look at financial and operating challenges that we're currently seeing, and then hopefully moving into what we believe is the future for the Niagara Centre branch, which is looking at a shared service agreement or a municipal relationship of support. So now I'd like to invite Ben McDermott just to talk around the context of Niagara Centre.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. Throughout our presentation, much of our focus will be on the operations in the town of Pelham and the city of Welland. However, before we get into that, we wanted to provide an overview of the impact our organization has across Niagara. The YMCA is one of the largest charitable organizations in the region. We provide vital services such as health, fitness and aquatics, licensed childcare, early on education, day camp, immigrant services, employment, leadership development, and volunteer opportunities. Whether it be supporting individuals with their job search, providing quality care for children, helping new Canadians increase their language abilities, or providing a safe place for an at-risk youth to meet new friends, our YMCA programs and services help improve lives and build a stronger community. Next slide, please. So here in Pelham, our YMCA has proudly served this community for over 116 years. And over the years, our YMCA has adapted what we offer to meet the changing and diverse needs of the residents. Next slide, please. Since 2005, our Health, Fitness, and Aquatics branch has been located on the campus of Niagara College. And the map on the screen illustrates our catchment area. Our Niagara Centre branch was strategically built in this location to be accessible to both the Pelham and Welland communities. And within the center, we provide an environment that is inclusive, welcoming people of all backgrounds and financial positions. We offer a wide variety of aquatics, fitness, and recreation programs for all ages to help them improve their health and wellness and connect with others in their community. Next slide. Within Pelham and Welland, we're also very proud to be a leading provider of childcare, day camp programs, and youth community outreach. We currently operate 5 licensed childcare centers, day camp programming during winter holiday, March break, and summer, and youth outreach programs which run out of Plymouth and Diamond Trail Elementary School. Next slide. This slide provides more specific. I think we got a little order. So let me just regroup here. So this is a slide that talks a little bit about our new membership model. And as a result of declining membership and the significant challenges caused by the pandemic, we have reevaluated how we offer YMCA programs and services to our community. Feedback from our members and a market study all pointed to offering a more flexible model for individuals and families to purchase membership based on needs and interest. And we launched this new model in September of 2021 and now have 4 different membership options available. We also changed the way we provide access to swim lessons, providing the same options for both YMCA members and community participants. Next slide, please. So this slide talks a little bit about the current membership mix. The information is based on statistics from August of 2022. And the pie chart is a breakdown of where our members reside in the community. 66% of members live in Welland, 21% of the members live in Pelham, and the remaining 13% reside in other Niagara communities or outside of the region. And this is still current as of today. Also, as part of our charitable mission, our YMCA provides financial assistance to those in the community who may not be in a position to afford regular fees. And this represents about 21% of the total number of members and program participants who access the center. Next slide, please. Our Niagara Center YMCA also has the only indoor pool within the Pelham and Welland communities. Therefore, we wanted to provide you with more detailed snapshot of our aquatic operations. This is also based on stats from August 2022 and includes an estimated breakdown of pool users by community, which is similar to the breakdown provided in the previous slide. There are also more specific stats provided on the number of bathers for open swims, number of participants for our aqua fitness programs, and number of children and youth registered in our swim lessons. Next slide, please. Our YMCA is also very proud to be a leader in the efforts to address the national shortage in lifeguards and instructors. In 2018, thanks to the support of many donors and businesses, we launched our Making Waves bursary, which covered the majority of the aquatic certification costs for youth who were not in a position to pay the full fee. And this past fall, we launched a secondary initiative, our Jump In With Us program, which provides individuals of all ages with opportunities to get their certification at no cost. And collectively between the 2 programs, we're pleased to say that we have assisted over 100 individuals with obtaining their certifications. And we've recently partnered with the City of Welland to support with their lifeguard training and are happy to look at how we can work more collaboratively with your team in Pelham to support your summer outdoor pool staff training. Next slide. So this slide provides some information on the average number of members that we've served over the last 6 years. And in 2018, 2019, we experienced a decline in overall membership due to an increase in the number of for-profit fitness businesses that entered the marketplace. And shortly after that, the pandemic hit and our YMCA was forced to close for a significant amount of time due to the pandemic. And like all recreation and fitness providers, this time period had a negative impact on both our participant numbers as well as our financial resources. So this slide goes back to the new membership model that I had explained in a previous slide, and it breaks down how that model is performing and the demographics of our current members. And we're pleased to say that we're currently serving over 2,000 members with a significant number of folks joining as part of the family. And this number, we're happy to say, is growing every day. The fitness floor category is the most popular membership option, and the percentage of members who use the pool is up to 50%, and that's a combination of our all-inclusive and aquatic members. We also continue to serve all ages of our community and have seen an increase in participation among youth and older adults. And I'll turn the floor back over to Christian.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. I want to talk a little bit around just where we're at in regards to renewing and formalizing the lease extension with Niagara College.
We're at 8 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Holy, thanks very much. So basically we have submitted our intent to renew the lease with Niagara College. We are currently in conversations in order to basically finalize that lease in the coming months. And so it doesn't expire until April. We foresee that being completed by probably by the end of February. Slide. What you actually have here is basically the financials that support the impact that we've been having in the local community. What you will see on the left-hand side there is the overall Niagara Centre budget, which as you work through it, what you'll see is an operating contribution which is in a deficit position, and then we add administrative overhead and capital costs. The overall net contribution is also a deficit position of about $630,000. That's what basically it's taking us right now in order to meet the needs of the community and deliver the impact. On the right-hand side, and as Ben had mentioned, being the only aquatics facility in the community, what we did in order to portray the impact of being the pool operator is just reverse engineer the cost to running the aquatics only portion. And this comes through conversations with the staff members in regards to kind of showing the impact of being the aquatics operator. But it also reinforces that the current health and wellness model that we have within Niagara Centre is a sustainable model. What we're finding is the current challenge is just the utilities costs that are associated with managing a pool, and also the staffing model in regards to it being basically a regulated area. Slide.
You are now at 10 minutes.
Okay. And so thank you, Madam Clerk. So gentlemen, you are the only delegation that we have tonight. So go ahead and finish your presentation, please.
I wouldn't have rushed so much on my last slide if that was the case. Thank you very much. So this is basically just our financial model for basically forward-looking 5 years. So our forecasted model or our budgeted model, but also looking at the previous 5 years for the Niagara Centre. What you will see is that over the previous 5 years, there has been a net deficit position that as a YMCA and ensuring that the community still had access to our services, we absorbed through our own reserves. Then obviously the pandemic exacerbated the challenges, and we are re-emerging with a new membership model and ensuring that we engage the community to help push us back into a sustainable position. As you will see, looking from years 1 to years 5, it will take some time to get back to that model where we're sustainable. As articulated in previous slides, a majority of that is due to the utilities in carrying and the overheads in carrying the only indoor swimming pool in the local area. So slide, please. So this slide is just to articulate in the previous years when we've looked at our reserves have come from non-funded areas. So within the YMCA, we offer within many funded models, so children's services, employment, and then community. And so they're funded services. So the allocated funds have to stay within those areas. Unfortunately, with the health and fitness and aquatics and camp, they don't have any funded sources. And so slide, please. What we are looking to do and what we've seen work in other associations throughout Canada, but also within one of our own branches within Niagara, is that collaboration needs to exist between municipalities and YMCAs in order to ensure that we can be sustainable and keep delivering services for the local community. Slide. The partnership that we have with the City of Port Colborne is a model that we are looking to replicate within Niagara Centre, which is how it works at Port Colborne. It's a subsidized model. And so basically there is a subsidy that's applied to the branch to ensure that we're sustainable and to ensure that we can keep on delivering programming services, our financial assistance model to the community members of Port Colborne. Slide. So what we're asking today is for a commitment from the Pelham Council in regards to supporting the Niagara Centre branch. As you can see in the bottom section there, so we're looking for a 5-year, potentially renewable agreement where there will be an opportunity for the council to inject some funds to ensure that we can remain in the community and keep delivering services. And in saying that, we've obviously did a little bit of research, and so we're not looking purely as a straight handout. We're looking to be creative around what the solutions could be in regards to helping us bridge the gap between where we currently are and becoming a standalone site that can financially be sustainable. Slide. And here are some of the options. You know what I mean? It could be support towards capital infrastructure. It could be shared services. It could be any different models. So we're not limiting it to we're looking for pure financial resources, but it's like how can we get Niagara Centre to a position where it's financially sustainable and standalone, can meet the needs of the community. Slide. What I'd like to do now is just invite Kelly Jones into the conversation. Kelly is an employee of the YMCA, but also does reside in the Welland community. So I'd just like to invite him in.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, the reason why I was part of the 2006 launch of the Niagara Centre YMCA, and I know that the mayor at the time, Ron Livens, and Vicky Van Ravensway, who's still with the town of Pelham, were instrumental in securing that funding with our CEO, Steve Butts. And I think that, I strongly believe that the Niagara Centre YMCA on Niagara College campus doesn't exist without the town of Pelham. So we still really appreciate now, as Christian iterated, that we're looking for support on the pool. The pool is the community pool for Pelham and Welland. And I think that myself living in North Welland, my son goes to Maple Crest. He plays in the Pelham Panthers program. And so that's just kind of like a true fact of, as both cities grow, City of Welland and the town of Pelham, we need to come up with more creative ways to use the facilities in a more creative manners. And I know that I commute back and forth for town of Pelham and Welland services and programs. And I think that's kind of the future of what we're seeing and the strength of what we've already built in 2006 with the town of Pelham's contribution. So, when we look at training of the lifeguards, as Ben mentioned, I think that's going to be a key infrastructure, because for the town of Pelham, I see a huge pool increase usage because of the install of the new splash pad and in the improvements at that park in general. So, we'd be happy to look at different partnerships of training lifeguards, because that's a huge shortage, because no other region has a Niagara Falls with 3 to 4 operating water parks of that nature. So the key thing, I just wanted to be here because I was part of the 2006 capital or opening of the Niagara Centre YMCA, and I really want to reiterate how important the town of Pelham. We're hoping that continues on as we move forward, and making sure that our pool that serves Welland and Pelham is there for many years to come and operational with great programming.
Thanks, Kelly. That concludes our presentation.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, gentlemen. A thorough presentation for sure. I will now turn to council. Any members of council that have questions to the gentleman on the presentation? Councillor Wink.
So just going through your report, looking at the percentages of your overall membership, there's 268 members from the town of Pelham. How many pool users are from aquatic users are from Pelham?
Gentlemen, do you track that?
Yeah,
You got in.
I can answer that one. So I think if you take the fact that right now 50% of the membership, on average, is using the pool. We could take that number, the 216 that you articulated, and say that half of them would be using the pool. However, I want to add that in addition to members, our YMCA is open to the community. We have a number of times where folks can come in and purchase a day pass to use the pool, and we see significant traffic from all areas of our communities to use those open swim times. So if you needed some more data around that piece, we can certainly put that together for you.
Yeah, so what I'm driving at is how many actual citizens of Pelham are partaking in swim lessons and the like. They might not be members, but how many people are we talking about? Because in all honesty, if we're looking at 268 members for the next 5 years, the town is paying $1,972 per member, and 268 people represent a very, very minute size of our population. So I'd like to see those numbers, because if I look at your operating statements, half your expenses of your entire organization is the pool, and have your losses would be, without the pool, would be $100,000 a year. So I'd like to see you drill home a little bit more on how many Pelham people are actually partaking in swim lessons, lifeguard lessons, that type of thing, because the way it's being presented right now, to me, it's not financially feasible for us.
We can certainly put that information together for you and come back with more details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wink. Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for you with respect to the financial statements. You were in decline before the pandemic, and you said it was because of competition from local gyms that sprang up. Most of those, I believe, you'd probably find that they were lower cost than you. That was what the attractant was there. In the meantime, since the pandemic, we have gyms that have grown up in the town of Pelham as well. So I can't see taking tax dollars from the people that pay taxes here for our gyms and giving it to a competitor in another municipality. It just doesn't fit in principle with me. The other principle is that I would sooner see our money spent on expansion or improvement. I don't want to pay for past mistakes. Now this looks to be like that's what we're doing in terms of investment. Now the details of your financial statements, they indicate you were spending $26,000 a month on repairs and maintenance and cleanliness. Then it went down to $12,000 a month for during the pandemic, which is understandable. But you're going to go back to $16,000 a month only $16,000 a month post-pandemic. And the life of gyms and recreational facilities depends on the cleanliness of the place. So I wonder if your numbers are accurate there. And you also mentioned that the degree of support we're looking for is approximately $100,000 a year. That means that Welland has to come up with like $500,000 a year, and in order to cover the rest of the costs and maintain their share of the thing. Now, are they willing to do this, or is this speculation? And what form is this support to be? Is it supposed to be a grant or a secured loan or backstop a loan? Is that's what intended? Those are the questions I have for you. Maybe there's too many in there, but I can remember them all. So,
Christian, I'll handle the fitness level one about the separation. So, thank you, Councillor Olson. Ultimately, when we're looking at the fitness club, and I totally agree with putting unfair competition measures in for other fitness facilities. But, we really want to, the reason why we separated those finances is because right now our membership trajectory and the changes that we've made to our pricing structure has made us more competitive. Yes, I think pre-pandemic, our pricing structure wasn't competitive and we saw the response in that. So if we were to simply move the pool off the elements of membership. Our fitness center would still be competitive with other fitness facilities and on the pricing structure to do so. So we're seeing that trajectory of growth in membership. Ben, would you support that as well, like as we're moving forward with this Y? And I'll leave Christian for the finance piece on how that would be covered.
Yeah, so I think if I try to take notes as you're talking. In regards to, I think it was repairs and maintenance. I think there was like most things, there was finding a more efficient way to operate facilities, and I think we're working that way in regards to our HR costs, but also repairs and maintenance in regards to how do we do things more efficiently, better. However, maintaining the same quality. So again, if we find that new model as we re-emerge and as we exit the pandemic needs further investigation and we need to go back and kind of revisit it, that's exactly what we'll do. One of the things that I think as a YMCA we've done historically is we've had to evolve. You know what I mean? And this is an evolution of, most organizations had to evolve as they come out of the pandemic. This is one portion of us. We are operating on a more efficient model. If you have a look at the HR costs that were historically embedded in Niagara Centre and what we're operating under now, we've managed to combine roles and we're finding a new efficient way of doing those things. In regards to the support we're looking for, absolutely, we have commenced the exact same conversation with the municipality of Welland and the council there, in regards to garnering support in the exact same way that we're doing here today. So we will be continuing the conversations with that council. And then the last one is we are looking at creating a partnership. So we're not looking at it, it's not a loan, it's not a backstop. It's like creating a partnership so we're in this together. And so there's creative ways on how to do that. Once again, revisiting utility costs for us to run Niagara Centre astronomical. And so potentially there's ways that you potentially have some expertise in your staff team that can come and do some efficiency work with us in order to drive down those utility costs. And so it's not, we're just looking for some level of support to ensure that we can remain sustainable. And by saying remain sustainable, remain in the community, delivering services to your community members. That's what our end goal is. And I think if you look at the recent renewal of the lease with Niagara College, that's another 20-year lease. So we're committed to be in the community. What we're looking at is evolving our partnership with each municipality that we're serving, so that we're in a partnership. So we are collaborating and not coexisting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fact is that the agenda is being written in Welland, and we're always going to be a minority partner. And I would prefer that our money went into something where we expanded the service or improved the service. That's where I prefer our money to go, and not supporting something that if Welland changes their mind about this, we're left hanging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Olson. Any other council member? I see Councillor Nesnick.
Hi, good evening. I think it is important that we try to come up with some way to support the Y moving forward. They are the only indoor pool facility. We will never, in the near future anyways, have an indoor pool. I know that was on the original MCC plan, and then that got taken off there. So this is the closest pool other than Brock University to use. And I do believe the Y is much more feasible in terms of swimming lessons and that sort of thing for our community. So we are, as you see, the subdivisions growing towards Welland and south from Pelham. We are becoming a very close-knit community. So I don't think I would hope council wouldn't shut the door completely on this, and maybe give us some more time to kind of think on it and come up with, maybe get creative in order to continue to support you folks. because I'd hate to see you close the way the downtown St. Catharines Y just shut down. And I assume that was financial reasons. So, but it would be sad if that happened in Welland because, and I think we also need to remember that a lot of our students who, you know, their Quaker Road school is very close, even though it's Welland, there's a lot of Font Hill area kids that go there. French immersion students from Font Hill go to Welland for French immersion school. So I think we need to remember that it's for children, the YMCA as well. And those programs really are different from what we offer at the MCC. And I think if we can get creative with that and make sure that those programs are different and unique so that both facilities can prosper. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Councilor Nesnick. Any other councillor with any comments? I see Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was a longtime member at one time, and Kelly probably remembers me from the Y. And obviously, pre-pandemic, I left because of the price. But one of the big competitors you have is Brock University in terms of swim programs, swimming availability, and pool. Because I know from my grandson, several of them have transferred through and got all their training at Brock University and the programs they offer there. So they're offering extensive programs as well as the Welland Wellness Center and also the facility where the soccer and paddle facilities have that the city is sponsoring. So I think these dollars are very hard to come from in each community. So it's a real challenge, and especially with the pool operating expenses. The university has a great advantage that you don't have with regards to pools and arenas and all those kind of things. So like Councilor Wink said, that's a huge load on your facility. And I'm not so sure, once we get the real numbers, what the actual participation is from Pelham at the pool. And as far as the activity center, I left because of the price, really, and the services that I could get locally. And obviously, the municipalities, both Welland and St. Catharines and our municipality, were there when the Y wasn't there anymore. So basically what happened is your clients left, and all the guys that I were with, I met them recently, none of them have come back and probably don't plan to come back. So it's a real difficult situation. I understand the situation. I thank you for your report and the value you do have for some of your outreaches. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. Any other comments from any other councilors? Not seeing any. I turn to the CAO. Is this perhaps where we accept the report for information, or should we be asking staff for a further report, or what's your take on this, sir?
Well, certainly at the end of this, I do anticipate someone bringing a motion to receive this delegation for information. That's we're in agreement there, and one assumes, pursuant to Councilor Nisnick's entreaties, that perhaps you'd like us to kick the tires. So if that's the case, then you want to move that staff return with financing or contribution options and or some sort of update on the City of Welland's commitment thus far, and some options on how we could tie, well, potentially how we might tie a potential donation from this town to what, if anything, is done by the City of Welland. So those seem like viable options that we could produce a reasonable report on, should that be your wish. And realistically, if you gave us about 6 weeks to get back to you, that I think Welland may have just finished all of its budgeting, if I follow the newspaper correctly. They're very close to the end of that process anyway. And admittedly, they could make their contribution outside the budget process, as could we for that matter. But at any rate, that might be a useful yardstick. So certainly a motion for a staff report. I think realistically, 6 weeks is not an unfair ask on us. That's 3 cycles, but of course we have to do the strategic planning in there, and you have to pass your budget within the next 10 days or so.
So that's how I would proceed. Should you be interested in the staff report?
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Again, I'll go one more time. Any other comments or questions from any other members of council? If not, I will turn to the clerk. She's obviously been listening to the CAO. Madam Clerk, to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just incorporating Mr. Krebs's comments. Council could consider a motion, be it resolved that council receive the delegation from the YMCA of Niagara for information, and that council refer the YMCA Niagara financial request or contribution options, being a 5-year agreement, to staff to review and report back to council by April 2023. If that's satisfactory, and if any member of council wish to put that forward, I'm not sure if Councilor Niznik would like to.
Okay, Councilor Nesnick, would you put that forward?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that wording. Thank you.
Okay, and we
Just
need
need a seconder.
need a seconder, and I see Councilor Eckert will second.
To Mr. Mayor, that would just bring you back to any further discussion on that.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion that the clerk has just read out? I'm not seeing any, so I will go to the clerk for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councilor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councilor Kerr,
Yes.
Councilor Niznik,
Yes.
Councilor Olson,
Yes.
Councilor Wink,
Yes.
Councilor Eckert,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation tonight. And you're really, obviously, when we get the staff report, we will be in further contact, I believe.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just ask Ms. Leach to remove our presenters from the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On your next item of business, I do have a motion put forth by Councilor Olson, seconded by Councilor Eckhart. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1 RCO 1/2023, January 9, 2023, regular council. To Mr. Mayor, I ask that you call for any errors or omissions.
Well, thank you. As the clerk has requested, is there any errors or omissions in the minutes listed in the agenda? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councilor Kerr,
Yes.
Councilor Niznik,
Yes.
Councilor Olson,
Yes.
Councilor Wink,
Yes.
Councilor Eckert,
Yes.
Councilor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to item 7 on the agenda, which is the request to lift consent agenda items for separate consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, this would be the time for any members of council to advise what items they would like to lift to be considered separately. If a member of council simply has comments on an item, they're not required to lift it. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see Councilor Olson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to lift 8.3.1.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. That is the Integrity Commissioner fee update. Thank you. Any other report requested by councilors to be lifted? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring us to our consent agenda. I have a motion put forth by Councilor Kerr, seconded by Councilor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the January 30th, 2023 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein contained be approved, save and accept item 8.3.1, which has now been lifted for separate consideration. See, Mr. Mayor, did you want to discuss them in categories?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. The first category is staff reports of a routine nature for information or action, and that is everything within 8.3 to 8.3.8. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So on those items, 8.3.1 to 8.3.8, is there any of those items that any council member would like to comment on? I see Counselor Eckert.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just on the 8.3.2, the crossing guard warrant study, I read that report. I want to thank staff for their prompt attention to my request, and I have read the report and I accept the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Counselor. Counselor Hildebrand, I believe I saw your hand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have many items I'm going to discuss, so I don't know whether you want me to limit it to my first two and then my next two, so other councilors can have an opportunity.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
My first two. I'd like to publicly acknowledge the fire chief and the firemen as willing helpers to other municipalities. The report showed that they provided 32 hours of station staffing to help out Fort Erie. I think they need public recognition for doing such a great act, and I really appreciate being part of municipalities that provide goodwill services to other municipalities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My second one is the Public Works one, 8.3.5 Streetlight Conversion Program. LDCs or local distribution hydro companies charge municipalities for electricity used based on the type of street lighting. The conversion we've been having is from high pressure sodium or HPS lights to LED on a monthly basis. The LDCs rely on the municipality to advise them where and when conversions are completed. The question to the Public Works Director is, have the local LDCs been notified of the conversion we've done so far? Thank you.
To the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So council is aware that the LED streetlight conversion project was broken into two phases. The first phase was approved last year. It involved the conversion of 565 streetlights within the town. That project is currently at about 90% complete. They were trying to get that done before the end of the calendar year, but we ran into some weather-related delays. So they're hoping to have that project complete and all the conversion done by the end of February. That being said, I did speak with our contractor regarding the conversion of the lights and the discussion with the utility companies. Once that conversion is complete, Real Term Energy, who is our contractor, will work with the town staff to coordinate that with the utility company so that we will start to have the new buildings in place on the completion of the project. So that will take place. It hasn't yet.
Great. Thank you, Director. Councilor Hildebrand.
Thank you. That's my first two. I have two more, but other councilors may have comments, so I'll wait for them to complete.
Okay, thank you. Any other councilor have comments on 3.1 to 3.8? Councilor Olson?
Yes, 3.8 through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. When do we expect to have the in-person meetings for conducted at the MCC? Is there a timeline on that?
Mr. CAO?
Well, good news. Yesterday, pigs were seen flying over some parts of Pelham. And the next result of that is that it looks like maybe, just maybe, we're kind of there. So the technology has been physically installed. We need some opportunity to do some dry runs and actually test it so that we don't have an epic failure at the wrong time. But we do think realistically that the last meeting in February could be cast, televised, that's the wrong word, webcast from that location. So there's a distinct possibility. We're tracking towards being able to have what would officially be a hybrid meeting, but any of us could physically attend in the Accuracy room at the MCC on February, I want to say that's the 24th. Madam Clerk will correct me if I'm 21st. Okay, see, I'm wrong there again. But we're tracking towards Feb 21.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councilor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the CAO or the IT manager. 8.3.8 corporate services, there was discussion in there about the IT manager meeting with Rogers and Bell to discuss rural high-speed initiatives. I know this is something that the provincial government has said that it's going to happen in all rural municipalities by 2025. Just want to know if Rogers and Bell indicated what their plans are and when will this be implemented in Pelham?
And Mr. CAO, are
Oh,
you-
I feel Miss Quinlan Murphy probably has a better answer than I do.
Okay, we'll go to Director of Finance, Teresa Quinlan Murphy, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the details for that, but I can ask our IT manager for specific dates. So we can send something out to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Wink, and thank you, Ms. Quinlan Murphy. Any other questions on 3.1 to 3.8? If not, we will go back to Councilor Hildebrand. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Olson addressed the question I had on 3.3.8 corporate services. That was in camera meetings. The third item is 8.3.7. It deals specifically with transit. As you know, I try to use transit here and there just to get a feel for how the service is operating in the town. Online, when you use your phone or your computer, when you're booking a ride, you just have to book it for when it's available that day. The scheduling option still does not work. So if you call and schedule ahead of time, which I tried to do, that worked. The problem I had is almost when I was supposed to be picked up, I got a notification on my phone that they'd be over a half hour late and I would miss the appointed time. Now they allowed me to cancel. In the past, I was able to, within half an hour, always to arrive when I wanted, to be picked up when I wanted. Now the buffer almost has to be an hour. So I just want the residents to realize that they're going to require a larger buffer on their time from the experience I'm having. It's no longer within half an hour you're going to get where you want to be picked up with when you want. Even though the average says it's a half hour, I'm afraid from my experience, it doesn't come anywhere close. So the online scheduling would be great if it could ever occur on the app. And when I've talked to the agents, they say that it's being worked on. That's the only answer I got. So at the region, possibly that would be a question. How is that progressing? So it's done on your computer or on your app, you're able to schedule your rides. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. Perhaps Councilor Olson, member on the Transit Commission, perhaps that's one for your cohorts to take a look at.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Hildebrand. That's something I'll take back because we had the launch of the service on January 1st. I noticed some of the stats that I've been receiving, and it looks to me like the wait times are getting a little extended. And it doesn't surprise me, or maybe it should surprise me that it's gone beyond the times that they're showing, because they're quite extended, and I don't find them that acceptable myself. So I will look into that for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other questions or queries on 3.1 to 3.8? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring you to 8.5. That's the information correspondence items to Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the 8.5 information correspondence items 8.51 and 8.52? And the other ones too, of course. Any questions? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, that does conclude the consent agenda. Would you like me to call for the vote?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councilor Niznik.
Yes.
Councilor Olson.
Yes.
Councilor Wink.
Yes.
Councilor Eckert.
Yes.
Councilor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councilor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the items for separate consideration. Councilor Olson did lift item regarding the Integrity Commissioner fee update report. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Olson on 8.3.1. Go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. notwithstanding my disagreement with having fees, I just want to bring up a few things that I saw in the report that showed that certain parts of the region, including Niagara region, St. Catharines has a minimal fee, and Welland has a minimal fee. Looking at that, I found that each one of those had an informal, conformal complaint protocol. And we don't have such a thing in our book, as far as I know. And I'll read the preamble to it. Individuals are encouraged to pursue the informal complaint protocol as the first means of remedying behavior or activity of a member that they believe contravenes the code of conduct. The Integrity Commissioner may be requested to assist in an attempt to settle or resolve the issue with the member and the individual, but will participate only if both parties have agreed. The parties involved are encouraged to take advantage of the Integrity Commissioner's protocol potential role as a mediator, conciliator, and conciliator of issues related to the complaint. The informal complaint protocol is not a precondition or prerequisite to pursuing the formal complaint protocol related to the code of conduct. In other words, it's a voluntary thing that is well established in the other communities, and that's how they avoid the need for a punitive number, a punitive charge for complaints that are regarded as frivolous, etc. Now, I believe this works, and I believe it can work in Pelham. And I wanted to propose a motion, an amendment to the motion, which would be, let me find it here, that the motion be amended to include, and that staff be directed to investigate a code of conduct informal complaint protocol and report back to council by June 2023. And I spoke to Councillor Niznik about this, and I believe she supports this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Let me ask the Mr. CAO, Mr. Krebs. You've heard the a proposal from Councilor Olson. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, we're always happy to take direction and instruction, and if it's the will of council for us to investigate and provide you some further alternatives, we're always pleased to do so. That being said, we got to where we are by going through, by getting a lot of experience during the last term of council. We didn't arrive at it haphazardly, and it wasn't slapped together. It was based on a lot of experience and considerable time and review. And there is some merit in the notion of an alternative dispute resolution kind of process. Those exist in small claims court and family court and civil litigation, other sort of parts of the legal system. And they exist for a very good and a valid reason. So it's not an idea without merit. And if you wish us to come back with some options, we will try to do so. That being said, my experience with the complaints over the past 4 years is that a number of them were not even close to things that would be, the people filing complaints had no desire to talk about them. They simply wanted to file the complaint. You can't, some things can't be reasoned away. And then there are whole topics. I say this, then I put on the lawyer's hat. And one of the things we've figured out over the last 20, 25 years through mandatory mediation and conciliations and alternative dispute resolution mechanisms is there are a bunch of things you shouldn't try to force people to sit in a room together and discuss. If it's, if there's an allegation of some sort of sexual misconduct, you don't put those two people in a room together to have a separate informal process and talk about that. That's in fact the system being treating the complainant really badly, by way of example only. I'm not suggesting there are sexual allegations against anyone, but so that but I think you can see intellectually how a number of things just don't lend themselves to that sort of process. So I guess what I'm saying is I have some mixed feelings about it. There is some capacity. There's also a reason why it's only 2 out of 13 that have that in place. And if we do manage to put it in place, it is not free. You'd be paying the exact same amount per hour from an integrity commissioner to come in and referee informally a dispute. So I'm not personally convinced you'll recognize savings if it takes 6 hours to referee a dispute or 6 hours to investigate something. 6 hours times the hourly rate is something akin to the same bill. However, it's always nice to offer options. So I realize I've made arguments for and against. That is actually what I'm trying to do here for your consideration. If you wish for us to look at further options, we're happy to do so. As we sit here today, you have the current policy in place, so that would continue to be in place were we to take the time to come back to you with options. Currently, I'm not sure our current system is broken, but I'm not the one with the finger on the pulse of the community the way any of you are. And so we're happy to take guidance from you on this question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. I do believe that the region has an informal complaint driven resolution, perhaps. Anyway, any other comments from any other members of council? Councilor Olson, I see.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the first step in the process, which I would imagine that most of these complaints, I think you classify them as emotional events. The first one is a mediation between the mayor and the CAO and the individuals involved. It does generally involve the integrity commissioner and is in a role of conciliator or mediator. So I think this reduces the chance of the cost, and we can carve out different things that we don't think that the informal complaint process or protocol applies to. And I agree with the CAO that certainly would eliminate sexual misconduct or harassment or anything like that. But this is we're missing out on the opportunity to talk to our citizens and have them tell us what they believe in and what they don't believe in that we're doing. And I think that the negative feedback that we get is far more beneficial to us and our knowledge than the positive feedback. So we're missing an opportunity there to deal with the feedback loop from our citizenry. This is also used in Welland, and it's also used in Niagara region and St. Catharines. So to say that there's only 2, there's 3 there, and I haven't talked to the other people, but that's also a fact.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Councilor Nesnick, did I see your hand? Yes, okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. So yes, I think what Councilor Olson is getting at is that some of the complaints that could possibly go towards the integrity commissioner might be not derailed, but solved in a more simpler fashion. And I think that if we give residents the opportunity for that option, it might be a better option for them to be able to sit down with the mayor and maybe the CAO and say myself, if I'm involved, and the complainant to say, what was she thinking or whatever the complaint is about. And then we could work it through, hopefully in a cooperative manner. And if they're not satisfied after that, they certainly have the right to go to the Integrity Commission. But I think this was a way of possibly saving some of that angst when the Integrity Commission gets involved. So that's why I said to Mr. Councilor Olson that I would support that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Any other comments, questions? Oh, Mr. CAO?
I'm not interested in sounding argumentative, but there's a fundamental, those municipalities that have instituted this, I don't think bothered to get legal advice on it. You have to understand that the only free option for someone to come in and sort of adjudicate is to use my services. And the self-evident conflict, I work for you. You control my paycheck and my destiny. So that's not neutral arbitrage. It just isn't, right? I constantly have a vested interest in making sure things went your way, which is one of the reasons why the vast majority of municipalities don't do this. And is why if you do it, you end up using an integrity commissioner. It's got to be someone who's not on payroll, and therefore it's got to be a fee for service. We can't go using locals that want to volunteer their time either. So that like there are some considerable problems here, and I'll just reiterate one last time. We spent a lot of time on this. You had at least the CAO, the clerk, and the town solicitor involved at a minimum. We spent months on this. We finally came up with a system that's actually served us really well. And this is the only item on the agenda we've had for a couple of months that I don't fully understand because it is not broken. And yet we are attempting to fix it. We have not had a long stream of complaints about it. I realize there's some parts of it in theory, and I appreciate, I too don't love the idea of charging people money to file a complaint, but that's why we have a number of caveats in there. And certainly the ombudsman thinks we should not charge anyone who wants to file a complaint. They think that's a terrible, they strongly recommend against it, but they don't live in a world of financial responsibility. They have 100% of their budget provided to them by the province of Ontario, and there's always enough. So it's hard to take. So, that's a big caveat with their advice. At any rate, we would be happy to take direction. We will come back to you with a report with options if that is your preference. I want all of council to understand, if you were to, we put a lot of time into this. We got a product as a result of a lot of experience, and it's been working.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to wholeheartedly support what our CAO said. We went through 4 years of a lot of integrity and ombudsman reports. And I know the work that the integrity commissioner and the ombudsman did on our behalf was well worth the time and effort we put in it. And the people who generally issued these integrity reports had no compromise in them, in my view. And I think like we said, that council spent a lot of time coming up with a system and a policy that worked. So that's my position. I prefer to stay with what we came up with. I think it was excellent. It worked excellent. And really, I think it solved a lot of problems that we had last term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. Before I go to you, Councillor Link, I would just like to say that I know for a fact that the region just did a very informal referee session, whatever you want to call it. It went very quickly. I don't know what the steps were involved. And that's how come I would support doing a study to see just what is available out there. I don't know if the region went to the Integrity Commission, and it seemed like it got done very quick. And our experience with the Integrity Commissioner is that nothing got done quickly. But maybe they phoned him up and he came down for a day. I don't know, but I would be interested to see, as much as the CAO has said we have worked on it, and I'm sure we have. I wouldn't mind seeing if there is a first step that we could take that would bypass or speed things up so that it gets done quickly and everyone is happy with the resolution. Anyway, those are my thoughts. To you, Councillor Wink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some comments with respect to some of the claims that were made by residents last term. And in most of the cases, the Integrity Commission found that their complaints were frivolous, vexatious, and contain insufficient grounds to support an investigation. There was certain circumstances where individuals did several complaints, and there was no way that we were going to resolve that unless it went to the integrity commissioner. I agree with Councillor Hildebrand and support this staff report. I think this is a fair way of dealing with it. I believe that some of those people who put in complaints to the integrity commissioner didn't want to listen to staff or council or whatever. They had their minds made up, and they were going to the integrity commissioner anyway. So I'm fine with leaving things the way they are.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eckert.
Thank you. I have had some experience in the past few years, number of years, with informal resolutions to complaints against members or employees. And I can tell you that in my experience, they rarely work out well. The people that come in are looking for their pound of flesh. And for the person that's being complained against it can be quite humiliating to sit there. And sometimes it is even, let's say, progressed to make it even worse. So although I'm not necessarily against looking at other alternatives, I believe that what we have will work. And if it came down to it, I would be voting against having that informal process as the start. So that's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? And I see Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Wink, Eckert, and Hildebrand, only from the standpoint that, and as our CAO has mentioned, the concern of the integrity of the people listening and the independence of them and the separation of one from another can often be looked somewhat skewed because there may be a perception of lack of impartiality based on who is involved in the infamous "is someone a friend of a friend of a friend" approach that gets bandied about and lobbied about at times. And I do agree, having been with the Ontario government where they had some things like this happen. I agree with Councillor Eckert. I have observed and been others where things have actually been exacerbated to a greater degree than what they might have been had they been dealt with by a completely independent third party. So understanding, yes, mediation always ahead to avoid, when you think of it, don't go to court if you can settle out of court ahead of time has always been a great attitude of things. But this may not be a particular situation where this fits. So that's my position.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will ask the clerk to conduct the vote. Not seeing any hands raised, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity for the record, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, which is seconded by Councillor Niznik, that the motion be amended to include and that staff be directed to investigate a code of conduct informal complaint protocol and to report back to council by June 2023. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any other discussion.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion presented? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
No.
Councillor Kerr.
No.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
No.
Councillor Hildebrand.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were 4 no's, therefore the motion is defeated for the amendment. It brings you back to the main motion. which is to receive the report for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. To receive the report for information, any further discussion by council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, we do use Councillor Kerr and Councillor Hildebrandt as the movers and seconders, as they were the movers and seconders for the consent agenda. And the motion is be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0026, Integrity Commissioner Fee Update Report for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any other discussion.
Again, any further discussion? Not seeing that, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote again begins with Councillor Olson,
No.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Eckert,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to your staff reports. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0016, proposed 2023 council meeting schedule, and that the 2023 council meeting as provided for in Appendix A to this report be approved, and that staff be directed to publish the 2023 council meeting schedule to the Town of Pelham's website. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any member of council have any comments to make on this staff report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckert,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To Mr. Mayor, you're on your next staff recommendation report. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that council receive report 2023-30 recommendation report, applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 125 Port Robinson Road for information as pertains to file numbers OP AM 03 2022 and AM 01 2022, and that council direct planning staff to prepare the bylaws for the approval of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at the next regular meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any council comment or questions on report for application put forward in this motion? Councilor Niznik.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, just towards to ask Ms. Weens a couple questions. So originally, the area that is now proposed to become an apartment. So will the access from Port Robinson Road be a permanent access into that apartment area, or will it eventually come in from the back road called Moody Street or Moody Drive?
To the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. There is the option to have a access off of Moody Street when Moody Street gets reconstructed. But because this would be a condominium apartment, it will need to get a permanent access off of Port Robinson if it is going to be constructed prior to Moody Street being extended. And so they did provide a conceptual site plan to show that kind of extension. What you were dealing with at this point in time, however, is just the zoning and official plan amendment. If this gets approved and they deal with the servicing questions, because the zoning is going into a holding zone, and if those matters get addressed, then the next step would be site plan. So there's still a few things that need to be worked out before we get to that stage, but this is the first kind of step in the approval process is the official plan amendment and the zoning. The zoning is proposed to go into a holding category because we still have a few servicing issues to resolve.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you. And just one final other question. So originally the area was deemed what they call open space. So is there anywhere else in that development that open space will be designated? Or is it just going to become all housing?
To the director.
Mr. Mayor, through you, the area that is considered to be open space is not on the subject lands. It's outside of this lands that are subject for the this application. So there is still the opportunity to have some open space lands in accordance with the open space designation in the official plan, which would be at the corner of Port Robinson Road and the future Klager Avenue. And then there is also a large park or open space land off of Summersides Boulevard, which is within walking distance of this site.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you for your answer. I do think it's important that we maintain always trying to keep some open space available for residents and children to play in. So thank you so much. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This vote begins with Counselor Eckert,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Niznik,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Counselor Kerr, seconded by Counselor Olson. Be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0004, assumption of Ryan's Grove subdivision, formerly known as Homestead Extension 2, for information, and that council assume the municipal services in Ryan's Grove, formerly known as Homestead Extension 2, subdivision, and open the street within the subdivision as public highway by bylaw in accordance with the subdivision agreement. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Before I turn to council, perhaps I will go back to the Director of Planning, and perhaps the director can describe the assumption of subdivision. What's that, and what's that phrase mean, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So when the town assumes a subdivision, that is when we take on the maintenance of all the works associated with that subdivision in terms of the municipal works. The roadways are dedicated to the town when the draft plan of subdivision is registered. But as you know, there's underground services in terms of municipal sanitary sewer and waterworks. And then there's also municipal sidewalks and so forth and roads. So when we assume the roads and the municipal services, it's after they've been functional and operational for a period of time. And we've done the inspections of those services and, the sidewalks and roadways, the top course asphalt and everything has been installed and is in accordance with the town standards. The street trees are planted and so forth. So that's when we assume it. All the works are completed and have been for a period of time.
Great, thank you for that. And you touched on the planting of trees. Are they under the developer's, lack of a better word, guarantee for a certain number of years, or how does that work, please?
Mr. Mayor, through you, typically the street trees are planted and they're guaranteed for a year after they've been planted in terms of survivability. If there's any trees that are haven't survived within that year, the developer is to replace them.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so to council, any questions or comments? See Councilor Hildebrand.
Thank you very much. This is to the Public Works Director. This subdivision has rear yard swales for stormwater management and many pie-shaped lots. The expensive landscaping, expenses fencing, and expensive driveways have violations in that they have water shutoffs in them. And on the fencing and landscaping, it's done where the town shows access according to the drawings we were just provided. What action has the town taken to address these issues to avoid future costs and issues with the residents which occur when servicing is required? Because I, as a counselor, have dealt with this, and it's a very complicated, difficult issue. The residents are very upset, and obviously, water shutoffs and driveways are a prime example. There seem to be many driveways that have the water shut off in these expensive, custom designed driveways, and you never get the driveway looking like it used to look. So I'd like to know from the Public Works Director, how is this addressed to protect us from the cost and the irritation we'll get from the residents dealing with this issue in the future?
Thank you, Councillor. To the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll address this question in a couple different paragraphs, I guess. With respect to the water shutoffs, it is best practice to have the water shutoffs outside of the driveways. Our standard repair is to use asphalt if we have to do any maintenance repairs on those valves. So as a town, we don't go in to do stamped concrete repairs and driveways and that type of thing. So best practices are to keep the water shutoffs in the landscaped areas and out of the hard surfaced areas. So we have, with respect to any encroachments for any of our easements, with respect to any landscape features, with this particular subdivision, we have entered into encroachment agreements with the property owners, which will be registered on title, and those property owners will be bound by those agreements. In most cases, the swales and the drainage, the landscaping features that have been placed on within those easements are not negatively impacting the swales. Particularly, they do have some features that encroach onto the easements. So wherever there has been a conflict, there has been encroachment agreements established with the properties, so that in the event that the town has to go in and do any maintenance repairs, that we're able to do so and remove those landscaping features at no cost to the town. So that those agreements are in place where there are any major conflicts. There were minor issues, and as part of the assumption process, with the final, there's two assumptions. There's the primary services that get assumed prior to the subdivision being built out, and then there's a final assumption once the subdivision is complete. Engineering staff from the engineering department with the town, as well as the developer and the engineering firm on behalf of the developer, will go out and inspect any deficiencies. This was completed on this particular subdivision. Engineering staff have verified that any deficiencies that were in place have been corrected. So that's why we're comfortable at bringing forward a report for assumption at this time.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you for that report. Because of Pelham being such a transient community, and these people in these professions move on, what happens is the original owner signs this, which is fine and dandy, and then the new owner comes in, and then all of a sudden, that's where I seem to run into a problem from a relationship point of view. Thank you for the report, though. Truly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. Councillor Eckert.
Just to follow up, Mr. Mayor, on Councillor Hildebrand's question, and I'm not sure if I missed the answer, but I'm not quite sure that his first part of his question got answered. So clearly the preferred location for water shutoffs is in the landscaped areas, but there seems to be, according to Councillor Hildebrand, areas where they are in the driveway. If they need to be worked on, our policy is to use asphalt. That's where I think there would be a conflict with the homeowner who has a very expensive driveway that wants it replaced the way it was. So how do we protect ourselves in that situation?
To the director.
Yes.
I see Mr. CAO. Are you anxious to answer this question?
Well, I just, for clarity, those shut-off valves are always on town property. That usually demarcates where public land ends and where private land begins. And to be abundantly clear, that is our land. And it does create conflict, and it does continuously disappoint residents who feel they've put a lot of work into landscaping and gardening, or in this case, the caliber of their driveway. But understand that as just a strict legal point, we are allowing others to trespass on public lands. We refer to it as your driveway, but it's really our driveway. And the legal protection we simply work to a standard, and our standard is asphalt because we have no way to recreate the concrete. And at any rate, we'd be conferring a private benefit to one landowner at the expense of everyone else. So as a practical matter, where those occur within, in this case, we're talking about nice driveways, but even if they occur within what people consider to be their front lawn, that's in fact the town's lawn. Right? Whether you've planted begonias there or not, right? That is within the ambit, that is typically the end of the ambit of the road allowance. And so we have that capacity, and realistically, I know of no municipality in this country that does better than asphalt when it does the repair. It is eternally a complaint everywhere I've ever, not just where I've worked, everywhere I've lived. Which is more than a half dozen municipalities. And I'm not sure that Pelham is going to invent a different or better outcome, but that is why we are allowed to enter onto that area, address the water shutoff valve, make the repairs we can, because we're not actually entering on the private land. Those are supposed to demarcate the end of our property.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. To Councillor Eckert.
Yes, I appreciate that answer, and I know that. And probably everyone on this call knows that. My concern is there a process that is, because I know of people that have no concept of the fact that part of their front lawn or part of their driveway is actually on town property. So is that sort of a thing that people should be aware of that, or do we, in these developments, when these subdivisions are built, is that clearly spelled out to people?
You'd have to imagine the marketing campaign. That's ours, not yours. Don't care about what it looks like. I mean, I don't have any way to tell you what percentage of homeowners are aware of that. I know I've been, because I work in the municipal field. That's not average or normal or par for the course. I take your point, Councillor Eckert. If council has any specific direction, we're always happy to take it. But this is just one of those things that in the same way that sort of no one really teaches you how to do taxes, and just all of a sudden one day you're supposed to know how to do taxes. The shut-off water valves are constantly if they're in driveways, people run them over. They trip on them. They bang them with whatever, and we end up fixing them. And if we do a repair, if we have to remove concrete, and then what we have to replace it with is asphalt, right? This cold patch, and it never looks the same again. But importantly, you have clean, fresh, abundant water. And aren't we lucky to live in a place where you have essentially unlimited, clean, fresh, abundant water? That's the win.
Thank you very much. No more questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kerr.
I guess to follow up of, do they know or don't they know? I guess ignorance of the law or ignorance of legality does not allow you to supersede what is legality. Coming back, if you don't realize where your lot lines are, where your survey lines are, that behooves the owner to understand that. I will kind of leave it at that. Just to say, oh, I didn't know. Well, sometimes you need to know. I'm sure that if the water shutoff didn't work correctly, the homeowner would be absolutely in demand that the town fix it as fast as possible. Not the converse where the town would say, well, no, it's a water shut off on your property, you fix it. I mean, you can't have it both ways.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nesnick.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, a question for Mr. Marr. So is there an option for the homeowner to say, thank you so much for coming and fixing I don't want you to put in the asphalt, I'll repair the driveway topping at my expense.
Thank you, Counselor. I was about to ask that same question myself. To the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, our level of service would be to do the repair, reinstate with asphalt around that valve, secure it, and then obviously the homeowner would have the ability to do a proper repair if it was a stamped concrete or some type of concrete driveway that they have the opportunity to make that repair after, for sure. We wouldn't prevent them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on this item? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Counselor Eckert,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Niznik,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next staff report. I do have a motion put forth by Counselor Wink, seconded by Counselor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2023-0033 Corporate Services Final 2023 Capital Budget for information, and that Council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within the report, being 1, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF, grant allocation for 2023 has been reduced by $147,676 from 2022. Therefore, the capital project RD 0923 will be funded $836,829 from OCIF grant and $147,676 from the Roads Reserve. 2, FAC 05-23 library design will be reduced from $300,000 to $200,000 as per the estimates from Petrov Partnerships Architects. This includes a 25% contingency as recommended by the Director of Public Works. 3, PRK 0623 shade sales will be reduced from $50,000 to $0 since the Rotary Club is able to fund this through the grant it received for the arches. 4, RD 2023 Wellington Heights School Crossing increased from $30,000 to $50,000 as requested by Council. 5, PRK 0523 Civic Square will be reduced from $100,000 to $0, and no cost in the next 4 years forecasted capital budget shall be directed by committee. 6, $1,000 donated to the Niagara Division Canadian Railroad Historical Association for a sign is approved by Council, and it will be part of the operating budget. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on these items from any member of Council? I see Councillor Kerr.
Yes, referring to RD 2023 Wellington Heights School Crossing, increase from 30 to 50. I'd like it clarified that this is a not just a school crossing, but is a full pedestrian crossing across Canberra Road that is used not only during the school hours, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it may clarify a little bit where it has been identified specifically as a school crossing alone. It's actually a pedestrian crossing.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Councillor Olson.
Yes, I'd like to divide the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and any particular way to divide it, or go ahead?
Item by item.
Okay, thank you. But Madam Clerk, I believe that is indeed possible.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to call each as a single vote. That would be no trouble at all. I have indicated for number 4, pedestrian crossing. I just would like to know from Council if they would consider that a friendly amendment. I can just strike the word school and insert pedestrian. If anyone has any issues with that or objections, could you please let me know?
Any objections to the change going from school to pedestrian? Not seeing any. Can we have any further debate on this, Madam Clerk, or should we go right into the division?
It's certainly up to you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to call the votes whenever council wishes. As we go line by line, certainly council will have the opportunity to further discuss if that's how you wish to proceed.
Yes, of course. Okay, excellent. Okay, so then before we go any further, any other questions? If not, as the clerk calls out each item, we will indeed have the chance to debate that particular item. Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to go down the list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, I'll be using the same mover and seconder for all of the votes. So that would be with Councillor Wink moving and with Councillor Niznik seconding. The first paragraph would be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0033 corporate services, final 2023 capital budget for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, this is accepting the capital budget for information purposes. Any discussion on this? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, we're going to move on to the next item, which is and that council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within this report being, and then we'll do each of the individual numbers separately, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
The first number is for 1, and this is with the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund OSIF grant allocations for 2023 has been reduced by $147,676 from 2022. Therefore, the capital budget RD 0923 will be funded $836,829 from OSIF grant and the $147,676 from the roads reserves. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this budget item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, we'll go on to a number 2. So this motion would be and that council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within the report being 2, FAC 05-23 library design will be reduced from $300,000 to $200,000 per the estimates from Petroff Partnership Architects. This includes a 25% contingency as recommended by the Director of Public Works. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions on this particular item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to paragraph number 3. And that would be, and that council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within the report being 3, PRK 0623 Sage Shales, which will be reduced from $50,000 to 0 since the Rotary Club is able to fund this through the grant it received through the Arches. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Niznik,
Yes.
Counselor Eckhart,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
yes,
Counselor Olson,
yes,
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To Mr. Mayor, that's going to bring us to paragraph number 4. And that council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within the report for RD 2023 Wellington Heights pedestrian crossing increase from 30,000 to 50,000 as requested by council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion by council members on this item? I see Counselor Olson.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a report tonight at 8.3.2, which was a warrant study on a crossing at Pancake Lane and Cherry Avenue. And I'm wondering why we shouldn't ask for the same type of thing, because it was informational for me to learn how a study was done. And I think this should apply to that as well. So I was wondering if we could red circle this. I'd ask the treasurer if that could be red circled and for future consideration pending the results of a warrant study.
To the treasurer.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we can.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Kerr.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a warrant study was done for school crossings, which was done on Pancake Lane. This was not done as a pedestrian crossing measurement. This had been done in 2019 on a single day, on a very limited scope. The similar one was done on Pancake Lane, if you read the numbers in the studies. So to be considered a full pedestrian crossing study as a comparable is not really the same thing. I think there is opportunity here that for a marginal increase in funding, that the potential to improve the crossing and enhance the safety factor of that crossing is there. It may not come in at the $50,000 factor. And in fact, any underspend may result in a return to the capital budget. So personally, I'm not looking at red circling this. I would prefer that it go forward. Otherwise, we needlessly delay the development of the enhanced safety, which I remember during the election campaign that there was a move by a number of people that were running for council that they said, surely the town can come up with enough money to enhance the crossing. So moving this as a deferral, all this does is push it and kick it further down the road. So I'm not into deferral. I'd rather vote in favor of this increase as it stands.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. A question to Director of Public Works, Jason Moore. Sir, when they install these crosswalks, do they do it, in fact, during the winter months, or would it be waited and be installed later on in the spring, summertime, giving us time to gather more data?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the region of Niagara actually does our design and maintenance of all of our signalized pedestrian crossings and streetlights. So the design, this project, if it was approved tonight, would have to go through a design process with the region. And then most likely by the time you had a design in place and tender the project out, it would be a late spring project earliest at this point in time. So that's kind of the time, like, we're not ready to go shovel on the ground on this. We have to still work with the region and come up with a design and then tender that project out competitively. So it'll be spring, early summer by the time this would be installed anyway.
Thank you for that information, Director. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Hildebrand.
During you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the study that was done in 2019, yes, it was 2 one-hour studies, and basically there were very few students crossing there. However, since that time, we all know that the school, Wellington Heights, has added a portable. And talking to staff at the school, they estimate they have at least 20 kids below and crossing there. And their concern with that crossing is that the sidewalks are right on the edge of the road. And as you know, when this motion was originally presented in our budget considerations in the public, it was Councillor Stewart that brought it up because of the near fatality we had in the investigation that was done by the RCMP, the Niagara Regional Police. Sorry about that. And therefore, for $20,000, I'm not willing to delay it. I think there are savings that can occur, and I think our Director of Public Works will make sure that happens. So for $20,000 and a delay, I'm not interested in waiting for a study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Surely there's time to study and gather data and facts before we spend $50,000. And I'm not kicking any cans down the road because I brought this up in the previous council. So that's the idea that I'm seeking to kick a can down the road is not true.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other question? Councillor, are you putting your red circle? Would that be, Madam Clerk, would that be put forward as a motion to be voted on itself?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I believe that it would be an amendment. The language might be that the motion, and again, this is just the split out version. So it's the paragraph indicating that staff are to change the draft budget, and that number 4, that the motion be amended by striking paragraph 1 of the motion and include, and that council direct staff to red circle this project until a warrant study can be completed to determine community need. I would just be looking to see if that's satisfactory to both Councillor Olson and to the treasurer, and then we would be needing a seconder.
Okay, thank you. Madam Treasurer?
No, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Olson.
That's fine with me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and now do we have a seconder for this motion? And if I wanted to second it, Madam Clerk, which I do, I would have to step down, correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Mayor, and the Deputy Mayor Wink would have to preside over this portion.
Then let's, I would like to second this motion. So can we do that, please?
Yes, thank you. I've included Mr. Mayor as the seconder. Mr. Deputy Mayor Wink, you'll be presiding over this motion now.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. Any further comments from councillors?
So if I could, Deputy Mayor, I would like to comment on this.
Yep.
Thank you. So obviously I will second this report or the motion, I'm sorry. Again, just because I can't spend this kind of money. It's only an extra $20,000, and I realize that, but I can't understand why this council refuses to get any further data to help the taxpayers. I know there's quite a few people in Fenwick who are not happy with us spending $50,000 on this crosswalk. I can tell you that much right now. We don't have the data. It would take, all we need is to put the, have the bylaw do some sitting out there, and whether it be, they don't have to do a distance study. They've already determined that the distance study does not warrant a guard there, so they don't have to do that study. It's just a case of putting a car with a bylaw officer in it, and whether it be for 2 days, 3 days, to come back to council with the true numbers as to how many people are using this crosswalk. It's one thing to have an official crosswalk. How many people are using it? We have no idea. I know I've gone down that road, I don't know how many times, not as many as Councillor Kerr, but I've gone down that road a lot of times in the last 70 years. And I can't remember anyone crossing at that particular cross. I would like to, matter of fact, I won't vote for this unless we had data that suggests that it is needed. That's my thoughts on this. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So any other comments from councilors? So just reminding protocols. So if you're not prepared to accept this motion, you probably should say so and make your comments accordingly. So Councillor Niznik.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Wink. What will we do without you? Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So my comment is yes, that I would like to see this proceed. I was under the understanding that a report had been done and a warrant study had been done earlier, that a crossing signal of some sort, an awareness signal was warranted. And I think during our discussions for the capital budget, it was really Councillor Kerr's idea that, you know what, if we're going to make a crossing, let's make a crossing so that it is evident and visual and well seen. So I will not be supporting the amendment to red circle it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kerr.
Yes, I would not support Councillor Olson's amendment. Having been a student, being 65 years old and a student at that particular school, and actually have used that crosswalk on many occasions. And when I was a younger student, believe it or not, I was a crossing guard at that particular location. And my other part is coming back to being on that road on a regular basis every day as a pedestrian, not as a person behind the wheel of a vehicle, but I've done that as well. And also receiving calls from parents and others that are using that crossing and live nearby there. That's why I am not in favor of Councillor Olson's deferral or red circling. I prefer that we go ahead with the original council agreement of increase to $50,000.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm kind of bewildered as well, and it's my fault that, like Councillor Nizlik, I thought that there would have been this study done already. So I apologize for not knowing that. I'm kind of in a quandary here because I have publicly for many years criticized the massive crosswalk at the end of Pancake Lane at South Pelham, which I don't know what it costs to put that thing in, but I travel down that way many times, and the lack of use of that crosswalk for the amount that it costs. And you see the people walk up there and they don't even push the button. They just wait for the traffic to clear and cross over, because they do it quicker that way than if they push the button and wait. So I'm surprised there wasn't a study done. And so I would be supporting doing the warrant study on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I will not be supporting the motion. I've talked to the staff of the school. They definitely need something done. And they virtually told us that not only does the school got about 20 kids crossing, but it also is a pedestrian crosswalk, but they estimate their enrollment is going to increase at that school. So if we don't do much now, we're going to do much later. So a study today does not represent what the study will be even next year, because Fenwick is growing and there are additional students coming to that school. So the study today doesn't change my mind with regards to how I'll be voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. So I guess that just leaves me, and I'll just say that what's the cost of one child? And we've got to protect our children and protect the residents. And I think we're spending a lot of time on this. I trust the Public Works Department that they'll keep the costs down as much as possible. If we don't spend the money, it will go back into reserves. So I will not be supporting the motion. So any further comments? Seeing none, to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The vote begins with Counselor Niznik.
I think no,
Counselor Eckert.
not in favor of red circling. Is that what I'm voting for?
That's correct.
Correct.
Thank
You're
you.
correct. Thank you. Counselor Eckert.
Yes.
Counselor Junkin.
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt.
No,
Counselor Olson.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
No,
Deputy Mayor Wink.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That's 4 no's. Therefore, that has been defeated. That brings us back to the original main motion. To you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for further discussion.
So just a point of clarification now that that motion's been defeated, does the mayor not step back into his chair?
I don't know if there will be any other type of amendments. I had envisioned you overseeing that. However, perhaps the CAO has some insights that he thinks procedurally best.
Well, actually, I'm happy to report that I think you're both right. I think as a default, Councillor Wink should oversee the end of this one sub issue. Because who knows, someone, including the mayor, could bring yet another motion, whatever that might be. And when we finally move on to the next item, then I would anticipate control reverting back to his worship. So everyone's got good instincts.
Thank you, Mr. Cribbs. So based on that, does anyone else have any further comments with respect to this item? Seeing none, I refer to the clerk.
Thank you. As you are presiding, Councillor Deputy Mayor Wink, I will be using Councillor Kerr as the mover instead of yourself, and the seconder is Councillor Niznik. And this is the main motion. And the vote here would begin with Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Councillor Junkin.
No.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
yes,
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Kerr.
yes,
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. That brings us to paragraph 5. Council, can you just give me one moment to get that vote ready? Okay, and then it is, and that council approve the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within this report, being 5 PRK 0523 Civic Square will be reduced from 100,000 to 0 and no cost in the next 4 years forecasted capital budgets as directed by committee. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. And before I continue, I'd just like to thank the deputy mayor for filling in for me. Thank you, sir.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
On this item, any further discussion? Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm doing real well tonight with my motions here, so this one, it strikes me that this should be the part about closing it off for 4 years forecasted capital budget as directed by committee. We know that we have to have shovel-ready projects, and we know that they come up, and we know they're sometimes restrictive. And I hate to think that we would be reducing ourselves to writing a last minute state of the art or shovel ready amendment or application for funds to fix the park or build the park up or whatever we want to do. So I would like to see some money left in the account, and I think I said at the last meeting $20,000 and remove the stipulation that we not talk about this for 4 years of our term of council.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Is there a seconder for this? Madam Clerk, can we, I'd like to step away from my chair again and relinquish my duties to the Deputy Mayor.
Certainly, just give me one moment, Mr. Mayor. So this is being put forth by Councillor Olson. It will be seconded by yourself, Mr. Mayor Junkin, acting as counselor. And it's and the motion is to amend. What I'm understanding is to amend the $100,000 to $20,000 and to remove the and no costs in the next 4 years forecasted capital budgets as directed by committee. Is that correct, Councillor Olson?
That's correct.
Is that satisfactory to the seconder?
Yes, it is.
And that's satisfactory to the treasurer? I just want to make sure she's satisfied with the language. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I turn it to you for discussion.
Okay, so yes, I was just going to go directly to you, Mayor. So could we have your comments, please?
Yeah, thank you. As the seconder, I spoke against this motion when we were discussing in committee. I just want to remind council that yes, we are responsible for day to day, but we are responsible for our vision for this town. It's one thing, yes, we have the dollars and cents. I get that. But sooner or later, we're also here as visionaries. You have to look into the future and say, wow. And when you look at that particular part of that park and to say, yes, you know what? We will eventually get to the point where we are going to be physically able. And wouldn't it be nice to know that this council kept the vision alive? $25,000, really? And we can't support a vision for that? I just can't fathom a council moving ahead and not having basically no vision whatsoever. All we're here, we might as well just go and get some accountants and say, here, you guys run the town because that's all dollars and cents. And we're not going to do, we don't care what can happen in 3 years or 4 years. I remember walking into that MCC when staff had the concept up. And people 5, 6, 7, and I was only there for 5 minutes. I believe they had it up at the home show. And the people turned to me and said, well, when is this going to happen? And they didn't talk to me about cost. They didn't say anything about that. They said, this is great. This would be so great for our community. And I said, well, don't worry about it. This is just a concept. The council asked staff to come up with a conceptual look at what could possibly be. And they were happy at that. So I'm going to vote. I said back in committee, I'm going to say now that our job as councilors is indeed to have a vision for what this town can possibly look like. So that's my words. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments from, yes, Councillor Niznik?
Yes, thank you. So since committee, I have had a chance to kind of reconsider this one line as well. So I think Mayor Junkins made a valid point that we do need to have some sort of vision. So to, scrape it away for 4 years and not have a shovel-ready project or not have any shovel-ready projects, which could be supported through funding. That's all my learning been this month. So I would be in support of this current motion to I'm not, do you need the $20,000? So what would the $20,000, maybe through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Ms. Quinlan Murphy, what would that amount of money do for this year?
So, so for you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer this to the CEO.
So for this year, it will, as far as we are aware, it will do nothing.
Okay.
So that we're abundantly clear, it's money that will stay in a reserve. You approve, conceptually, we're allowed to spend it. It's not enough for the engineered drawings to take us further down the field. However, I don't know what grant opportunities coming out tomorrow or next week or next month. Can't give you advice on that. If an opportunity for where, for 3/4 funding or for $80,000 comes around and we know we have 20 in the kitty, then we have a chance to pursue something. And if not, then next year, I really don't want to talk about the 2024 budget. We haven't passed 23 yet. But conceptually, if next year there's 20,000 in the kitty as well, then you're at 40, which is still physically in the reserves and earning interest, etc. It's still local tax money, it's still owned by the town. But conceptually, there's next year there'd be 40,000, and then maybe there's a grant to go and get the other, what we think is somewhere around 100, to get those plans. So it's really just creating a savings account. And all I can say is you either think that our economy is about to get worse, in which case Canadian political history is that grants go up, or you think it isn't, in which case presumably the town's growth will continue to be relatively robust, and that may well provide the revenues needed to do that work. Either way, I suspect, sorry, I don't want to insert myself into the debate, but $20,000 immediately will accomplish nothing that we are aware of, but you never know what you need to have as our contribution to get that piece done. And so it's a start. You're here for 4 years, and maybe it makes a difference in year 3 or 3 months from now. We can't say, but it's the start towards the goals 100 for that, to get that shovel ready, we think.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Councillor Niznik?
No, that's fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. So we'll go to Councillor Kerr.
I just have a question, and I'm not sure whether it's to do with parliamentary procedure or how this works. This can be put into place, but this topic could be revisited, is it not, with a supermajority of 5 of 7 of council wishing to resurrect the question in the future? Or am I totally wrong on that?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may. So, Councillor Kerr is correct in the sense that if council wishes to pass their budget, and indicate and direct staff to not bring anything back in the next 4 years, perhaps in 2024 or in 2025, council has a change of heart. A councillor may bring a motion forward as a notice of motion. If you were on the I will say the winning side of that vote, you voted with the majority, and you've now changed your mind, you can bring in notice of motion for a reconsideration, and you can bring that topic back alive. And yes, you are correct. You would need to have a 2/3 majority vote, which in our case would be 5 in the positive. I look to Mr. Krebs if he has any other further advice he'd like to bestow upon council.
I think what it's fair to say is from the staff position, whether you put in $0 or something more than $0, we really have no comment. We respect your direction there. It's really uncommon though to pass something to say we're not going to talk about something for 4 years, because it's just putting a limitation on yourselves. You are the only 7 who can pass or endorse anything to begin with. So you're really just telling yourselves, and I can tell you it would be extremely unusual for your staff, if you do pass the motion as it's currently written, for us to bring you. It's hard for staff to come and argue that we should go and do something if you've already said we don't want to talk about it for 4 years, that just sort of sounds like insubordination to me. So I guess it's if I had my druthers, the second part of that motion might not be there. Whatever, if you feel like putting note that this is an inappropriate way to spend money, so be it. I think it's very easy to respect any amount from $0 to 100,000. Any of those make good sense, but it is uncommon at the start of a term of council to say, well, I'm simply not going to talk about something for 4 years. If you don't want to endorse something for 4 years, never endorse it. We won't keep bringing it back to you. But if you do pass this, it's highly unlikely that anything will originate from staff to look at it again.
Councillor Kerr.
That's my advice.
But that doesn't preclude a counselor from bringing it back, does it?
It does not. Realistically, though, so again, not trying to sound argumentative, realistically, if a funding opportunity comes along, even if you find out about it in enough time, your only way to do it is by notice of motion. So you realistically need a month to get something on the agenda. And I'm sure Ms. Quinlan Murphy or Ms. Wilford can agree that we've had lots of grant opportunities come our way, and we have 2 weeks. We have 25 days, because they find they've got some money left over and they just like to they just give us this opportunity, and it's really just there for shovel-ready projects. You don't get half a year, you get 21 days, 11, like just weird periods of time. I won't pretend to understand entirely how the upper orders of government work. But if it's any of those scenarios, none of you would be able to bring that for council approval in an adequately timely fashion, barring us calling an emergency meeting of council. So it's cumbersome, whereas staff we can force things onto agendas. And so in that sense alone can move faster.
Thank you, Mr. Cribbs. Councillor Kerr.
But I guess where I'm following up is fundamentally putting $20,000 away right now, which is insufficient to do anything, really wouldn't buy us anything relative to a shovel-ready project in any instance, would it?
That's correct, sir. I don't mean to imply that it would.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. These are the facts that I was given when I was at the MCC and presented with this project. This overall project, if it was designed, was a $4 to $5 million project. The residents that contacted me were very upset that we'd even be considering spending $4 to $5 million on a project like this. For me to authorize even any expenditure in the next little while, knowing what our project line is, I think would not be appropriate. The fact is, in the past, we've been able to get shovel-ready projects done very quickly. And yeah, it may take a month to get it back on the agenda, but I'm willing to take that month. So I will not be approving any motion to change what we have in the presentation for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Eckert.
Yes, I just will reiterate what I said in committee. This is not a project that I am in favor of. No one I've spoke to has come out to me in favor of it. That's not to say that there aren't people out there that are. I'm not in favor of putting any money into an account in this year's budget. But I'm wrestling with the idea of not considering it for the next 4 years. That's my dilemma. But I guess if enough of us were in favor of it, as Councillor Kerr said, we could always bring it back with a super majority and change it. And if that takes a little bit of time, fine, it takes a little bit of time, but I won't be in favor of this amendment.
Thank you for your comments. So I'll make a couple of comments. So to Councillors Olson's suggestion that we need shovel-ready projects. I agree with Councillor. Olson that we do need shovel-ready projects. We're going through a strategic planning session at the end of February, where I am sure that some of the ideas that are going to come forward will require grants and those shovel-ready projects will come out of that strategic planning session. So it's not just this particular one. I, for one, am concerned. I don't need a legacy for my term on council to be, oh, we passed a project and it's sunk us further in the hole. Our finances are going to be tight over the next over this term of council. I would suggest that they'll be tight for the following term of council if projections are correct. So I'm okay to take off the comments about for the next term of council, but make it very clear that you need one heck of a compelling case that to move forward with this civic square. And looking at the forecast of finances, that I don't see that compelling case. So I don't mind dropping for the next 4 years, but I'm voting for reducing this to $100,000 and not putting any money aside for this year. So not sure if anyone wants to rebut those remarks. Councillor Kerr?
I think what where we're at, Deputy Mayor, is we need to deal with the existing motion from Councillor Olson and seconded by Mayor Junkin for the 20,000 and the removal of the 4 years first. And then I think that we need to look at if you're suggesting removing no cost for the next 4 years for remove it, that would be a different amendment rather than trying to mix this all up right now. I think we've got one on the floor to deal with, and then we can deal with another one to revise it at that point. That's my suggestion.
So thank you. So Councillor Niznik, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to say the same thing as Councillor Kerr, so that makes sense to me. I would be in favor to more. Yes, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So the motion on the floor then is to Councillor Olson. Did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would be willing to reduce my the number on the motion to 0.
Mayor Junkin.
I'm disappointed that is exactly that, Mr. Olson. But can you, and maybe I didn't quite hear that. Can you go ahead? Can you just reiterate what you said, Councillor Olson?
What I said, Mr. Mayor, was I would be agreeable to having the amount set aside as 0, but maintain the remove the part about the 4 years of council.
What happens, Madam Clerk, if I'm not happy with the removal of the 20,000? Tell me what happens, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The motion's moved and seconded and is on the floor for debate. So it is council's. So unless all council agrees to changing that motion, this is the motion that's on the floor. I would recommend council might consider requesting that this motion be divided. It sounds like some people may wish to support $20,000 and some not, and some may support the removing of no costs. You can do it with this amendment as divided. It's just a simple request from council. So I leave that to council to make a determination.
I'm hoping that Councillor Olson will reconsider and stay with the 20,000 but be willing to drop the 4 years. Counselor, would you consider that?
I would take the clerk's suggestion and ask to divide it.
Okay, thank you. So then you're willing to leave the figure then?
Yes.
Thank you. And then I'm willing to go with that, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one moment, we will do this separately. Mr. Mayor, so we are going to have this amendment divided. The first portion of the amendment is that the motion be amended to amend 100,000 to 20,000. To Mr. Deputy Mayor for further discussion.
Any further discussion from council? So I will not be supporting the 20,000. I will go to 0 for this part of the motion. Councillor Hildebrand.
Agree with you, Deputy Mayor. I'll agree with your vote. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
Well, seeing as we're putting all the cards on the table, I will stay with Councilor Olson's motion of putting 20,000 in the pot, because I do not want to be part of a council that has no vision for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, to the clerk for the vote.
Thank you. This is for the portion of the amendment for the 100 to amend 100,000 to 20,000. The vote begins with Councilor Hildebrand.
No.
Councilor Olson.
Yes.
Councilor Kerr.
No.
Councilor Niznik.
Yes.
Councilor Eckert.
No.
Councilor Junkin.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wink.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That portion, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that portion of the amendment does fail. There was 4 in the negative. That will bring us to the second portion of that amendment, which is, and that the motion be amended to remove the paragraph and no cost in the next 4 years forecasted capital budget as directed by committee. To you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, my apologies for discussion.
So any discussion or comments around that part of the motion? Seeing none, to the clerk.
Councilor Olson.
Yes.
Councilor Kerr.
Yes.
Councilor Niznik.
Yes.
Councilor Eckert.
Yes.
Councilor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councilor Junkin.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to the main motion as amended now with respect to that item. To you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So can you please clarify what the main motion is then, please?
Yes, thank you. It is. Sorry, one moment. And that council approved the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within this report, being 5 PRK 0523 Civic Square will be reduced from 100,000 to 0. That is all. To you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Clerk. Any further comments with respect to the motion on the table? Yes, Councilor Niznik.
So I will be voting no to that, just to stay consistent with my past vote. I do wonder if maybe some funds should have stayed in that account just to keep it as a line on the budget, but fair enough. I'm just going to stay consistent.
Okay. Councilor Kerr.
I'm going to vote in favor of it because it does not preclude it from being brought up in future budget considerations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hildebrand.
I will be agreeing with Councilor Kerr's comments. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Clerk, for the vote.
Thank you. Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Niznik,
No.
Counselor Eckert,
Yes.
Counselor Junkin,
No.
Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry with 4 votes. That does bring us to our last item, which is number 6. If council can just give me a moment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
You're welcome. The chair is yours.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Eckert.
just had a question for the clerk. She said that carried with 4. I thought there was 5 yeses.
Sorry, let me just take a look at my recording. For yeses, I have Counselor Hildebrandt, Counselor Olson, Counselor Wink, Counselor Kerr, and Counselor Eckert. My apologies, that is 5 yeses.
Okay, just wanted to let you know I was still awake.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Eckert.
Okay, to you, Mr. Mayor. We're on our last paragraph here, and that council approved the final changes to the 2023 draft capital budget as presented within this report, being 1,000 donation to Niagara Division Canadian Railroad Historical Association for a sign is approved by council, and it will be part of the operating budget. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
For you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The vote begins with Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Niznik,
Yes.
Counselor Eckert,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that item has been disposed of. Mr. Mayor, we have now moved on to the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Counselor Eckert, seconded by Counselor Olson. Be resolved that council for the town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a third and final time. 1, bylaw 0507-2022, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the town of Pelham, its committees, the conduct of its members, and the calling of meetings, and to repeal or replace bylaw number 4107-2019 as amended, third and final reading. And that council for the town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same. And that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw number 06-2023, being a bylaw to assume the subdivision known as Ryan Groves, formerly the Homestead Extension number 2, and to designate the streets as shown on the register plan 59R 15100 Ryan's Grove as public highway, and to name the streets accordingly. 3, bylaw 07-2023, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended. For lands located at 1114 Hayes Street, legally described as part of Lot 3, Concession 9, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, amending the regulations of the site-specific residential 284 zone, file number AM08-2022. 4, bylaw 08-2023, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended for the lands at 15 Highway 20 East, legally described as part of Lot 3, 4, 5, and 6, north side of East Canberra Street, Plan 716, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, from the general commercial zone to a site-specific residential multiple 2, 329 zone, file number AM03-2021, 5, bylaw 05/2023, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 17 for the town of Pelham area 15 Highway 20 East, file number OPAM 01/2022. To Mr. Mayor for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On any of these bylaws, is there any questions or comments any counselor would like to make? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item 14. This is motions and notices of motion. We do have a motion being put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Eckert. If Councillor Niznik wishes, she may read her motion into the record. Otherwise, I'd be pleased to do so. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Niznik. Okay, you have the floor then.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, whereas the council of the town of Pelham is committed to the safety of the community, and whereas council for the town of Pelham is concerned that the speed and flow of vehicular traffic on Port Robinson Road, particularly between Station Street and Rice Road, may have the capacity to create safety hazards. And whereas council for the town of Pelham desires to mitigate this hazard by regulating the speed of vehicular traffic on Port Robinson Road, particularly between Station Street and Rice Road, and to consider various potential traffic calming methods for this purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council for the town of Pelham directs staff to investigate the need for potential traffic calming methods to regulate and reduce the speed of vehicular traffic on Port Robinson Road, particularly between Station Street and Rice Road. And that council directs staff to undertake a speed study to collect speed data and to undertake a warrant study for a stop controlled intersection, possibly at Lamenti Drive and Port Robinson Road. And that council directs staff to report on the speed and traffic volume data and complete a traffic calming point assessment to determine if Port Robinson Road meets the requirements for implementing traffic calming initiatives, and to report back to council by June 2023. And that council for the town of Pelham directs staff to promote the town's neighborhood traffic management policy S801-02 and information on road safety on the town of Pelham website and social media.
Right, thank you. And so it's your motion, Councillor. Would you like to speak to it?
Sure. So thank you very much. So through you, Mr. Mayor, as you know, Port Robinson Road has undergone a great transition from a fairly quiet country road that was used by some residents to access the eastern part of Welland and out to Rice Road and on out to Cataract Road, etc. But since the developments have been really growing in that area, as well, when there was construction along Highway 20, I think folks learned that that was an easy passage to continue on west in order to get out of Fonthill. So it is becoming more of an arterial road and busier all the time, much like we've seen Highway 20 increase in busyness over the past decade and 20 years. So just I was approached by the residents, and so about 12 residents met with Mr. Councillor Eckert and myself just to kind of listen to some of their concerns. So their concerns are that, you know, the traffic really increases once that they leave Station Street and head towards Rice Road. There's actual speeding. I just got an information email from a resident that they were out on a walk, which the sidewalks are right along the road as well. So there is no grass space between the road and the sidewalk. It is just sidewalk then road along that area, which is, you know, Highway 20 is also like that, unfortunately, up where the Tim Hortons is. But needless to say, they witnessed two cars actually speeding, racing each other from Station Street on down. So just feeling that they're neighborhood is really increased in traffic, which we know it has, that's been acknowledged. So when I spoke to Mr. Marr, he said, you know, there's ways that community can report this to the police in terms of their concerns about speeding. And then there, you know, once the road gets built out, there will be probably some traffic studying, but I don't think, I think it was felt that Mr. Councillor Eckert and myself wanted to get the ball rolling and getting this moving and getting something into place as soon as possible for our residents in that area. So I'm not sure if Councillor Eckert has anything to add to that, but that was my reason for the motion to get some speed studies done. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councilor Nesnick. And as a seconder, I will ask Mr. Councilor Eckert if he has any comments also on this motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the presentation by Councillor Niznik. I think she has formed the motion and the residents' concern and expressed them very well. The only thing I need to add or want to add is I know from personal experience, professional experience, and having been on several traffic safety committees in my former career, I know there is always a pushback from the experts that say that stop signs are not a traffic calming measure. But in the real world, if you ask any police officer or any resident that live along a street like that, stop signs are a method to slow traffic. I know there was a comment in the one report about you could be creating issues with people rolling through stops. And that's an issue for the Niagara Regional Police to be concerned with. But even if they're rolling through stops, they're not going through at 70 kilometers an hour. So they've made the road safer. If you have 5 cars in a line and the first car stops at the stop sign, that means the 4 cars following have also slowed for that stop sign. And it's not a NASCAR-like train going from Station Street to Rice Road. So I am fully in support of this motion. I'm not so sure that the stop sign would be adequately placed at Lemeti because I think there's still too big of a stretch between Station and Lemeti, and then you have a very short distance between there and Rice Road. So I'm thinking maybe something a little more west of that. There's an intersection there, and I'm not sure the name of it. But I have also spoken with the divisional commander in Welland about the issue. They are aware of it. They are tapped, of course, for manpower, and they get there as much as they can. I was very surprised and pleased to learn that because my thoughts were that if there was 25 traffic tickets issued in Pelham last year, that would be a high number. And in fact, there was 320 traffic tickets issued last year in Pelham. I'm not sure the breakdown of those, what they are, but I can get that information. So it's not only the police that have to be enforcing the speeding and the stop signs, etc., on not only Port Robinson Road, but everywhere. But it's up to the town, I think, to do whatever we can do to placate the residents and slow the traffic down on Port Robinson Road. So I thank Councillor Niznik for bringing this motion forward. I seconded it, and I will be supporting it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Eckert. And point of interest, in the budget just passed by Regional Council, tentatively passed. The Niagara Regional Police are indeed but what's the word, putting another patrol, detective constable. Obviously, he won't be doing the speed control, but the fact that we've got another officer now looking after the Welland Pelham district has got to be a good news. And hopefully that will filter down to more speed control in both of those communities. Anyway, any counselor have comments to make on this motion? Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I fully support the motion as stated, recognizing that there's still significant development to occur on the south side of Port Robinson Road, which in the future is just going to add to a much greater number of vehicles entering and exiting as well. Hopefully, maybe once Pelham Street construction is finished, then some people who I know of that bypass construction by finding the other ways around it, Port Robinson Road being one of those to bypass, to circle around to get to Rice Road. I agree. And the sidewalks, and hopefully once the road's redeveloped, some safety buffer between a sidewalk as well as the road, traffic calming measures. I think it's a great idea to get it started early, because if we wait, it's like anything. The longer you wait, the longer it takes for something to be implemented. So I agree. Let's get it going.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll be supporting this motion. I agree with comments that the other councillors have made. I would suggest that if we did anything at the intersection of Lemeti and Port Robinson, that's a stopgap measure at this point in time, because as you go further west, Klager Avenue is going to bisect Port Robinson Road, and there's going to be far more traffic from the subdivisions from the north and to the west going on that. And again, that might be better because it is a little closer to Station Street. It's a little bit longer run then. So, but yes, we should be doing something at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree we should be doing something. I've actually been on that road with the deputy police chief in the past, dealing with the same issues in the past. It's no different today than it was then. It has to be addressed. The only question I have is where the locational stop sign should be. I believe there should be one there. It's just where exactly on the street. I'm not sure that Lemeti Drive is the right location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments on the motion? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, the motion vote begins with Councillor Niznik. Oh, Councillor Niznik, you are muted.
Sorry, I guess it was, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our next item on the agenda, which is item number 17. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations. 2 items. This is the consideration of appointments to advisory committees and external boards. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
I see that Mr. CAO wishes to speak.
Well, Your Worship, I'm not allowed to bring a point of personal privilege because I'm not a member of this august body. But we did start this meeting at 5:30, and one might think that a bit of a break would be a really good idea before we go and closed.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking maybe after we went and closed, but if this is the time to do it, then council, let us take 5 minutes before we decide about enclosing. Councillor Wink?
So wouldn't we just go into closed? We've got to change the feed anyway, so let's move to go into closed and then we can do our break.
Mr. CAO, is that also a way forward?
They're lucky enough to be staff and we're just about to log off right now. So absolutely take that vote and watch me voting with my feet.
Okay, then, Madam Clerk, I guess we're ready to call the vote.
Thank you. The vote begins with Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Counselor Eckhart,
Before Counselor Kerr starts bouncing, I vote yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes, and see ya. Oh.
Counselor Niznik,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Ms. Leach,